We've been having a series of conversations about how the coronavirus has affected our workplaces. And many of these have been related to the next workplace competition. But now we've expanded that conversation to include other experts in related fields. And today I'm looking forward to a conversation about technology and how we are seeing that change some of the new things that are emerging through this crisis. And it's great to have David Rabin here today. David is a Vice President of Commercial Marketing for Lenovo PC and Smart Devices. David has nearly 20 years of marketing experience representing a wide range of disciplines, including account management, database marketing, media planning, marketing intelligence and insights, events, and more. And David currently drives commercial marketing and enablement for Lenovo's PC and Smart Device Group. This includes product stewardship for the Think family of products, including the legendary ThinkPad laptop. David, welcome. Maybe if you can start out by just giving us a brief overview of what you're working on at Lenovo.
Sure, Bob, and thank you for having me. You gave me a great introduction already. My world is really focused on our commercial business, and so for the purposes of that, for your audience, it's how do we engage businesses who have problems to solve that we can use technology to work with them to ultimately kind of fix their problems and hopefully lead to a great end result for them. Obviously, our world has changed quite a bit, right? A lot of the work we had been doing with commercial customers around the world, especially when we think about knowledge workers, was focused on the office. And I don't have to tell anyone that since about the middle of March, in almost everywhere in the world, that has changed. So a lot of our business today is how do we do those same things, but recognize that the worker is far more distributed than they ever have been.
Yeah, David, I was going to say, I think we've all suddenly gotten thrown into this huge, work from home experience, remote working experience. I think from a lot of the leaders that I've spoken with, for the most part, it sounds like it's gone well. But I'm curious, as we go through this crisis, what are you watching? Where do you see the biggest changes? And is there anything that surprised you?
The COVID pandemic surprised us. Nobody started 2020 thinking we're going to have a global pandemic, which is going to disrupt just about every aspect of life as we know it today. But as we think about the way that we are running our business today and the way that we are engaging companies that have a lot of knowledge workers, it's forcing us to reflect on the power that technology is delivering today. And we imagine if this had happened 10 or 15 years ago, we didn't have the device capabilities we have today. We didn't have the networking capabilities we have today. We certainly didn't have the security that we have today. And we didn't have the collaboration tools we have today. So, in a way, we're fortunate that the world of technology has enabled us to keep the lights on and running in a good bit of the knowledge worker industries today. And, the things that have surprised us, well, frankly, I think we were surprised on how quickly most of our customers, most of our kind of larger business customers that have large pools of knowledge workers, were able to pivot almost overnight and keep their businesses up and running. In many cases, the knowledge worker segments that we spend a lot of our energy thinking about have hit the ground running, and in many cases aren't going to look back.
Like you said, I don't think anybody's really planned this whole pandemic and, the remote work aspect of it. And I think we've all kind of reacted. But I'm curious, what are the specific tools or components that has served to make this possible and enable people to be successful?
Yeah, great question. And we've done a lot of research talking to CIOs, IT decision makers, chief technology officers, those individuals that at companies are responsible for delivering technology. And when we have these conversations, we come at Lenovo from a perspective of the employee is your most valuable asset, right? Without employees, most companies would fall apart fairly quickly. And there's 4 areas that we're seeing companies are very, very focused on driving with Lenovo. One is productivity tools. If you're not going to provide the right productivity tools for your employees, they simply can't do their job. One is collaboration, right? And in fact, the world of collaboration that many of us used to know from meeting with somebody in an office environment, all of that has had to move virtual. Services, you don't think about what happens with my technology when it breaks? What happens when I need a new piece of technology like a new computer? And if you're in an office environment, perhaps with a help desk there, it's quite simple. But in a virtual environment, we've had to work with customers to move all of their servicing to virtual as well. And the last is security. And if you're an IT manager or you're a CIO, security is really, it's your number one pain point. And it's been that way for the last few years. And now you're introducing a whole new set of challenges with employees working off the network. They're working from home environments, which you've never had to secure in the past. And even in some cases, employees, given a lack of the right technology, we're picking up an old laptop that they had in the corner of their house for 5 years, and they're plugging that into their corporate network. And so it's added a lot of security challenges as well. So again, it's those 4 areas around productivity, collaboration, servicing, and security that we're really seeing companies need to invest in.
On the productivity aspect, has there been any noticeable change in productivity, or any drop in the way people are working?
So the easy answer to that is, of course, right? Depending on the environment that you work in, depending on the profession you have, and depending on the industry you're in, you're going to see various changes in productivity. But in the aggregate, when we've gone out and actually done research on this by asking end users, what we found is that about 90% of the employees we talk to say, I'm good working from home. I have the right environment and the right setup. I've got the right technology. So in terms of the technology portfolio, I'm doing okay. And about 2/3 of them say that they experience no noticeable drop off or an increase in productivity because they're working from home. That said, I've got 2 kids. They're teenagers. They're a little bit of a pain sometimes, but they're in the house. I've got 2 dogs that sometimes like to bark when they see a squirrel in the street. So we're always going to have, when we're working in a less sterile environment, we're going to have some challenges that we have to deal with, and it's just how we overcome them that matters.
You also talked about collaboration, and there was an article in the Wall Street Journal Saturday about how some organizations were struggling with that. But I'm curious, are there tools out there that really help to facilitate that collaborative process and enable companies to innovate?
Sure. So the world of collaboration has really expanded light years in the last 3 or 4 years. And then the COVID pandemic has lit the largest fuse you can imagine under this industry. Where we were over the last couple of years, and in fact, I'll use Lenovo as an example, we created a whole solution called Think Smart, Lenovo Think Smart, to drive collaboration tools. So we've got purpose-built solutions. It's a device, software, and services, which basically turn a huddle room, conference room, or even a home office into a video collaboration tool. One touch button, I'm active in the meeting, I can share, I can view people. Had you heard of Zoom back in February? Probably not. Had you heard of Microsoft Teams even back in February? Possibly not. And so what we've seen is overnight, we've got 2 companies that collectively have hundreds of millions of daily active users using their video and collaboration platforms. Without those tools, without tools like Think Smart, collaboration would be exceedingly difficult right now.
But there's been a lot of talk about trends accelerating, and are you seeing that? And what are those trends that we're seeing accelerate?
Yeah, so when we think about kind of the way technology is going to progress moving forward, we sort of look at it under a couple different lenses. You've got your personal technology, and then you've got your office technology. Personal technology, again, what we're seeing customers interested today and tomorrow, make my employees collaborative and productive. So even something as basic as you need a great webcam now when you sell a laptop. You need great speakers when you sell a laptop. You need the ability for an employee to really bring the office as close to them as possible. So those are just basic things. I could actually get up and walk across the room because I've got far-field microphone capabilities. You'd still be able to hear me. In the office, things are going to get quite different over the next 12 months. For starters, you're seeing more and more companies are already signaling they are not going to go back to work. In fact, just today, Google announced that their knowledge workers should not plan to come back to the office until the summer of 2021. So that's a full 12 months from now. What they will return to is really anyone's guess. But what we're seeing is the day of the open office, which has been a trend for, as you know, for I mean, some might say 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That's going to be challenging for people to return to. So we'll probably see a return to more smaller huddle room or office types environment. We're also likely going to see a hybrid work style. And in fact, what you're seeing from some companies is they're using the term, think of the office as a business center. You do not work in a business center. You work in an office, and your office will likely be your home environment. But when you need to have a business critical meeting, when you need to have a collaboration session that must be done in person, when you need to have a face-to-face sales visit, you will use the office as a business center. So we'll call that not necessarily a distributed workforce, but a hybrid workforce. And then I think what you're going to see is video is going to become increasingly pervasive. And in fact, even in our Think Smart portfolio, we're exploring more video options. And again, you can imagine a scenario where maybe I am in the office business center and I walk up to a big video monitor, I push the button, and Bob, there you are. And we're having the equivalent of a face-to-face in-person conversation, like a collision you might find in an actual office hallway. We're doing it virtually. A lot of this is also going to be kind of wrapped up in a bow of what do the travel people say and what do the real estate people say. We're seeing lots of information coming out of travel departments saying, boy, it seems like we're proving that we can do work collaboratively without jumping on airplanes and spending a lot of time, energy, and money to fly around the world. So we'll see if that's a trend that sticks when the pandemic kind of subsides. And then we're also hearing more from CFOs who are looking at their real estate bill saying, you know, I wonder if there's ways that we can do a little bit more, and in fact, by cutting some of our real estate expense. So we'll see what the world of commercial real estate looks like also in the next couple of years.
Well, kind of building on that, I might ask you, a lot of our readers are, corporate heads of real estate, facility managers, architects, designers.
Yep.
How can the technology be better integrated into the workplace? And if you were starting to design a new space today, for your workforce, how would you begin that process? What would you think about?
Yeah. So again, I would think today I've got to keep my people safe. So how do I use technology to keep my employees safe and secure when they're in the office? And so we've actually got an IoT group at Lenovo that's focusing on commercial IoT solutions. How do I have touchless building access, right? I don't want people putting their hands anywhere. How do I do thermal temperature sensing? That may be something that we keep around forever. If it's an easy way to make sure that sick people aren't coming in the building. Digital signage, right? Make it super easy for me to figure out around the office. And even something as simple as, or as complex maybe, as using Wi-Fi networks for on-premise contact tracing. So, if somebody in the office comes down with a virus or a bug, well, let's figure out who was working around that person over the last few days, and we can use our Wi-Fi tracking to know that. The bigger picture, of course, becomes we do really expect to see this hybrid environment stay. And in fact, depending on the study you look at, you'll see that from a knowledge worker standpoint, companies had anywhere between 2 and 10% of their employees remote. That number will likely be 25, 30, 35% on a full-time basis. So you have to figure out how to bring those people who are working remote into the conversation with the people in the office. And so again, we're going to use productivity and collaboration tools to do that. And I expect that video will be a much more prevalent installation in both new buildings and retrofits moving forward. And I really do expect to see the return of the 2021 version of the phone booth coming back. You will see far more smaller collaborative workspaces that will enable us to have conversations just like this. And I'll be in a kind of a smaller enclosed environment as opposed to a wide open office environment.
No, lots of exciting stuff. David, this has been great. Thank you very much. I think the changes that we discussed are exciting. I'll look forward to having this conversation with you again in the near future and seeing how all of this plays out. But I think we're in for an exciting ride.
I think
great
so,
conversation. Thank you very much.
All right, Bob, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.